record, but hopefully now it will. Evidently
Okay.
I was evident. Okay, now it started. Good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So we're going to get going. Let's see. Let me close a bunch of stuff here. I sent this out just a few minutes ago. As it says, today we're going to go over this SQL query tester example. I'm going to attempt to build it for you. If you want to follow along, great. It may be just as good for you to watch. And since you're the only one here, I'm going to lean on you and ask you a couple questions as we go through this to make sure, because if we don't have certain things loaded on your machine, I'm going to show you where to get them. All right. And then tomorrow we'll begin the full-fledged database project. I've been working on it. I'm not going to say it's a thing of beauty. I'm not going to say it's not. But if you take a look at it, let's see, where is it here? This is what mine looks like right now.
Professor, you're not screen sharing.
I'm not screen sharing. All righty. So there you go. This is what mine looks like right now. So this is the main page. All right. And if you go, or this is the splash screen, I should say, if you go to main page, there's nothing there yet. This is what we're going to do tomorrow.
Actually, on mine, you're still not screen sharing.
You're still not screen sharing. All right. No, it says I was sharing. How about there?
No.
No. Well, that's not good. Let's see what I got here. So close this. Keep that up. Keep that up. Trying to figure what I've got open right now that could possibly be making this not work. So nothing that I see, but we're going to look anyway. So let me stop this and let me try it again.
There it is.
All right. So it's showing now.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So this is the way it currently looks. So this is the splash screen. These are the 15 albums that we're going to be working with. Right now, they don't do anything. And this is just a picture I grabbed out from the internet. And we're going to build this tomorrow. And then we're going to go to the main page. And ideally, when we click this, it won't just do this. It's going to be showing us the data. And we'll be able to go back and forth between the home screen and the splash screen. All right, so that's what's on tap for tomorrow. For today, what I'm going to do in front of your very eyes right now is I'm first going to come in here and I'm going to build or create a folder that's just going to be called tester. T-E-S-T-E-R, just so I've got something out there where I can save the project that I'm about to create to. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to create a new project. You've seen this multiple times. I'm going to choose my Windows Forms app, and I'm just going to call this SQL tester. All right. And I'm going to browse in here. I'm going to find the database that we just created, which is called tester. And I'm going to just keep the same name. There's only going to be one project in here. So that's totally fine to keep the same name for the project. And for the, well, if I want, I could do this. I can call this SQL tester app, and I can call my solution SQL tester solution. There you go. All right. And I'm going to click create. It's going to be a fairly simplistic interface. All right, let me get this out of here a little bit and get this out of here a little bit because I'm going to widen out my screen. All right, so I want this to be a little wider than it is, about like that. And again, there's as long as it's around that size, that's totally fine. All right, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put on here, the first thing is, and you can either, under all Windows forms, you can go to Data Grid View, which is right here, or under Data, where is it? There is a Data Grid View. It's the same one. It doesn't really matter. Since all semester we've been using this all Windows forms, I'm just going to grab this Data Grid View and I'm going to drag it out here and let go. All right, now what we're going to eventually do is we're going to eventually, not today, but we're going to click on here and set up some stuff. Today we're going to try to keep it pretty simple. So I'm going to take this and make it quite a bit bigger, as you can see. All right, about like that. That looks good. All right, in fact, let's see, move it up and move it about. That looks about right. All right, so that's the first thing. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab a text box and I'm going to put it down here. And I want to make this text box a lot bigger. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the multi-line property for the text box, which is set to false, and I'm going to change it to true, which means I can resize it. All right, so I'm going to make it about, I don't know, like that. That looks about good. That looks pretty good. Then I'm going to put in a button right here. All right. Looks about right. I don't know. About there. That looks okay. And I'm going to copy it twice. All right. These are going to be my 3 buttons. And then finally, I'm going to put in 2 labels right over here. The first label is going to be a little bit bigger than the other. You'll understand all this as we get going. But I'm going to throw a label in here right there. You've seen me do this before. So I'm going to go over here to, all right, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to set the auto size to false so I can make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to do this. So it's pretty big, but it's only going to have a number in it. All right, so I'm going to cut it down to about there. And then I'm going to take the size on there and I'm going to do what we've normally been doing. And that is I'm going to make it 20 and bold and Arial. And I'm going to put in there as a default value, the number 0. Right there, just like that. All right. And then right next to that, I'm going to add another label. All right. And let me move this over a little bit. There we go. All right. So another label right here. Again, I'm going to set the auto size on that to false. All right. And move it over. I don't know, around there. It doesn't really matter. But this is going to say right here, this is going to say records selected. All right. And again, because I'm a little squirrely about this stuff, I'm going to use my text align and I'm going to make it so it's centered. And I'll make this about 20 also. And bold, just so it sticks out a little bit. Whoop, and I didn't make that 20. There you go. All right, that's okay. I'll make it a little wider. In fact, I'll move it down. And I guess I can't spell. All right, so something like that. And again, I can make this one bigger if we need to. It's no big thing one way or the other. All right, I can make this smaller. I can do whatever. All right, but let's come through here next and let's name these things. All right, so let's start with the form, which is now form1.cs as it always is. And I'm going to rename it and I'm just going to call it FRM. And this is an SQL query tester. So I'm calling it SQL query tester. And I think I've mentioned this to you before, but when you're doing this, don't put any blank spaces in these names. So again, I called it FRM SQL query tester. And in fact, I'm going to click on the form in an empty spot, and I'm going to just make sure that I also have there for the text SQL query tester, just so there's something there. So that's up here. All right. Let's do the usual things that we typically do. All right, so let's come in here with these buttons. These are going to be what? They're going to be our 3 buttons. All right, so the 3 buttons will be execute, clear, and exit. Now, you could call this calculate. We can call it whatever we want. We're not really doing a calculation. We're executing a query here. So I call this one btn execute. All right, and put the code in there as execute. All right, I call this one btn clear and put the code in there of clear. We'll change the size in a moment. And then finally, this one is btn exit, and it's got the word exit in there. All right. This right here is what? It's our text box. And again, we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to put a query in there. So I just called it txt query. All right. This is known as a data grid view, this big thing in gray right here. You typically start it with DGV for data grid view. So I'm going to call this DGV, and I don't know, DGV query tester. That's fine, because again, this is what it is. All right, almost done here. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Well, we're going to have 2 labels here. All right, this is basically right there. That label is going to hold the number of records that we have. So I'm going to call that one LBL num records. All right, and this one right here, we don't really even need, but it says records selected, or I could have said returned. So I'll just call this one LBL records selected. All right. And then finally, one more thing is I want to grab everything pretty much that's in here, 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 and here, and let's change the size as we typically do. So again, I'll make that 20, bold, and Arial. All right. So all that stuff is done now. Our interface basically is built. I usually do this, so I can go and change the background color of the form if we want to. That's not a big thing one way or the other. All right, so we've got that. So like I said, basically right now, the app has been built. All right. Well, a couple of things that we all also typically do. So I'm going to click in here on an empty spot on the form, and we'll set the accept button to btn execute. We'll set the cancel button to btn clear, and we will set the start position to center screen. Okay. Also, as we always do, let's go in and click view, and we'll go to, gotta click over here first, view, and we'll go to tab order, and I'm going to set this to 0 will be the text box here. 1 will be the execute button. 2 will be the clear button. 3 will be the exit button. I don't know if I can set it here. I think I can. 4 will be the data grid view. 5 will be this one. 6 will be this one. All right. So let's do another view tab order. Let's do a file save all. And let's very quickly just run it, see if it kind of looks the way it's supposed to look. All right. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look terrible. It looks to me like it's functional, which is the thing I'm most concerned with. All right. So we've got that. Again, I can pretty it up if I want to. I don't really want to. So I think it'll be fine right now, at least the way that it is. So I'm going to double click on my execute button. We're going to add that code in a moment. I'm going to double click on the clear button. We're going to add that in a moment. And I'm going to double click on the exit button. And let's do our exit program or not. And I'll put that right down below here. All right, oops, not like that. And I'm going to grab that code as I always do. So let me find it and then I'll grab it. I must have closed all my internet windows. Okay. There's my exit button code. So let's throw that in there. Move that over. All right. Well, that's the first thing. So that's at least a start. And we can come in and we can come in and run it, make sure that that works, I guess. Okay, so that's done. And then let's do the clear button just so we've got that done. Okay. So I'm going to call a routine here that's just called clear the GUI, which again hasn't been written yet. So we'll write that down below this. All right. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I couldn't remember when I went in here um, exactly how you were supposed to clear out the grid view. I couldn't remember it. And there's different ways of doing it. All right. And I went out and found this article that was on Code Project that was called How to Clear a Data Grid View in C#. All right. I mean, I read a bunch of them, but that was the one that I ended up picking. So the reason I'm telling you this is that's where I got the code from. So if this dot data grid view query tester dot data source is not equal to null, set it equal to null. All right. Else clear it. So this dot dgv query tester dot rows dot clear. And basically what that is going to do, all right, is it's coming in here and it's saying here, if it's not null, make it null. And what that is going to end up doing basically is the equivalent of this, but it's going to say, hey, whatever we have put in that data grid view, all right, that really we're going to want to clear it out, all right, because we're about to do another query. The other stuff we have to do is pretty much what we have been doing. I do want that that label, that LBL num records. I want to set that text so it's back equal to 0, like it was when we started it. And I want to take my text box, txt query.text. I want to set that equal to nothing. And then I want to give it the focus. Now, there's not a great way to go in and test this. All right, but we can a little bit. So let me save everything and I'll come right back to the code. But if I do come in here and start typing some stuff and I click clear, it clears it and there's my cursor. So that pretty much looks the way that I want it to. All right. As far as I know, at least it's working right now. I'll leave that there for just a second. And again, if you are interested in this, and I'm not going to even lie to you, I want to be totally transparent here. I'm grabbing this off something I wrote a year ago. It should all still work. All right. But I guess we'll see. But I grabbed this from https://www.codeproject.com/questions/332-902 how to clear data grid view in C#. All right, so that's where I grabbed everything from. I think what I'll do too is I will take this and I will put it out there as a GitHub repo when we get all done. All right, so that anybody who may want to take a look at it, or if you try to build it yourselves and you have any kind of problem, then hopefully that'll help you with it. All right, so with that said, I'm going to now jump back up to the top of the program. All right, there are many different ways that this program can be written, as you probably guess. All right. What I did was I took almost every variable that I have and I made them global. So I'm going to put in here global database variables. Now, this morning, I sent you this. I sent you both. Where is it? There it is. All right. I sent you both the database that we're going to be using and this code that's up on the top. So let me grab that. So I'm going to grab, and I'll just click preview here, and I'm going to grab every bit of this, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and then I'm going to paste it in. There's where are we here? There we are. So I'm going to paste it in right here, and then we're going to go over it. Now, I'm not that, whatever you want to call it, dumb, whatever, that I think that every single thing that I'm going to say right now is going to totally make sense. Because especially if, for those of you who maybe have not read the chapter, this might make very little to no sense. But I want to go over everything that's here. And as you can see, I did put in comments and I put in hooks here into the Microsoft documentation. And this is where I got these comments from. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come in here right there, and we're going to create what's referred to as an SQL connection object. Now, when we started talking about this, and I don't remember what chapter it was probably 20, all right? But we mentioned that there were 3 different types of objects that you could create. You could create SQL objects. You could create OLEDB, which is object linking and embedding database objects. And you could create ODBC, which is open database connectivity objects. Since we are working here with an SQL Server database, it made the most sense to use SQL Server objects. All right. So as it says there, it represents a unique session to an SQL Server data source. What this is supposed to represent is our connection to our database. Now, this is going to be real interesting when we get here a little bit later, because one of the things that's always been the most problematic when I taught this class in a classroom setting was to get everybody set up where they were set up to the database and it worked. All right. And usually we'd have it, if I had 10 people in the class, 7 or 8 would work fine. 2 or 3 would be most problematic. Well, now it's even different because teaching the class online, I'm going to show you exactly what to do. But if you say, well, mine didn't work, it's going to be interesting because I'm not sure exactly how we're going to fix that if yours doesn't work. All right. Now, if you look right there, and again, that second sentence in says, with a client server database system, it is equivalent to a network connection to a server. The bottom line is we're going to connect this to a database that we want to have up and running and open on our own machine. But if we were using this in an actual production environment, then rather than having it hook onto our own machine, it would be hooked on to a database server someplace. And if you say, I still don't get it, just bear with me until we get down to that part in the code and we'll take a look at it. As it says here, we're going to use this connection object together or in conjunction with some of the objects we're going to create right below it those being the data adapter and the command objects. It's kind of quirky the way that they set it up here, and I can't give you the whys or the wherefores, and say why did they do it this way, etc. They did. All right, so this will be our connection object, and again, if you want more, you can click on the link right here. All right, and take a look at it. So this is the first line of code we're putting in here. This SQL connection, you can call that anything you want. Con, either CONN or just CON, is normally what people call it. All right, but you don't have to call it that. All right, then next, we've got this SQL query command. It's an SQL command object. As it says, when an instance of SQL command is created, the read-write properties are set to their initial value. Well, again, that might not make sense, but this is going to give us the ability where we will tell it the types of queries we want to be able to run against the database. For the example that we're doing here, the only command that we're going to be able to run against the database are going to be selects. Again, I tried to keep it as simple as possible and to keep the code also down to a minimum. So this will be our database connection. This is basically where we're going to tell it that we want to run select queries. All right. Then next, you see our third line there on line 52, which is called a query adapter. And as it says, it serves as a bridge between a dataset and SQL server for retrieving and saving data. So in other words, when you run a query, what you get back from that query is what's referred to as a data set. All right. This data adapter that we're calling query adapter will temporarily hold that data so that we're able to take it and put it into the grid view. All right. Now you can read that stuff there yourselves, but that's pretty much is what's happening in here. All right. And then next, as I keep going down, you notice the last thing that's in here. All right, it says this is a data table. And notice it mentions that this is a database table representation. It provides the collections of columns and rows that we are going to use to literally populate this data grid view with. So you'll notice if you look on here, this is from C# corner, but the rest of the stuff, that's right from the Microsoft documentation itself. All right. Okay. So do this, not ask backwards, but we're going to do this a little bit differently. And what I mean is what we're about to write this, and there's really not much code that we write in here. But before we do this, all right, before we do this, we're going to go down and we're going to go into our what's called, the load event for the form. And you know what that is. So I'm going to go and click on an empty spot here. I'm going to go and click on an empty spot in the form. All right. Here we go. That's a little better. All right. So I'm going to click on here. In fact, I might as well go and lock my controls into place. There we go. Whoops. Oh, and I open up the load event. That's what I wanted anyway. So I was going to just say double click on there to bring up the load event. All right. This is where we're going to literally set this connection string up. All right. And there's lots of stuff online that you can go to try to find this stuff. All right. And I mean, there literally is a website out there. Just for the heck of it, I keyed it in. And there actually is a website out there, if I can find it. Whoops, let me close that now. That's called, I think it was just called connectionstrings.com. Just typed it in for the heck of it. Notice it says this is how you connect to different types of databases. Well, one over here this is the only one I saw that said SQL. In fact, it was here, SQL Server. So I grabbed that one. And it said, well, there's a whole bunch of them here. All right. And then when you come down here, it's kind of got what you have. All right. And it's got standard security. It's got trusted security. It's got connection to an SQL Server instance, etc. Now, again, you may or may not understand what any of that stuff means. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to break this down. I'm going to put in here what we should be doing, and there is stuff that we may have to do in order to get this to work. I'm not sure. All right. This is what I'd like you to do, Grant, if you would do this for me, please. In your Windows Start button that's way over here in the bottom left-hand corner, hopefully you can see where I've got the mouse going back and forth. Click on there and go down, start arrowing down, because I think hopefully your instructor was not an idiot and he was smart enough to have you load what we need in order to be able to do this. But we're going to find out right now. If you do this, I'm asking you because I don't know. All right, let's see, which one is it? Let me try it again. All right, I want you to go down to Microsoft down here. And can you tell me, do you have a Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18 folder on yours?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Well, then we're going to have to do it the other way, which is okay. All right. But in here, all right, what should be in here is something that says Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. That's what we need to work with. Now, I kind of figured with the luck I typically have that wouldn't be there. All right. So I went out here to the internet and I said, just literally keyed in, install SQL Server Management Studio. I didn't put in 2019. I didn't put any of that stuff in there. I just typed in that and hit enter. All right. And as you can see, the first one that comes up is Learn Microsoft Com, and it's got the downloads. Probably can go to either one of these. All right. But I'll just try the first one here, download SQL Server Management Studio. So clicking there, and it's got the typical type of explanation, what's new, etc. And it says to download that, it says visit here. And I believe you can just click on this and it'll begin the download for you. All right. So if you would try that, I'd appreciate it. We need a way that we can connect to databases. And we're going to be using this SQL Server Management Studio. All right. And it's usually referred to, I think, as SMMS. All right. But I believe, and the good news, bad news, whatever you want to call it, is it's not, it's big enough. It's not a small install, but it also takes a bit of time. All right. Now, could I have told you guys to do this last week? I guess I could have. All right. But what I'd rather have you do, is just watch, for lack of better words, just kind of watch what I'm doing. All right. And then hopefully you're going to be able to replicate. You don't have to turn in this example that we're working on right now. You don't have to turn this in. I did this to introduce people to the type of stuff that we're going to be working with. All right. My biggest fear is that you will do this, and I know Grant, I know you can do it, but everybody will do this, but almost everybody will have a different kind of problem. And then I'm going to be working with people individually to try to get this to work. All right. And if that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it has to be. All right. But I've already got it in here. And I want to show you that since I've got it in here, if I come down here, and this is again what you should have after you do the download. But if you come down to this Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18, and I click here, try that again. All right. That there it says Microsoft Server Management Studio. That's the, I don't know if it's MSSM or SS, whatever it is, but I'm going to click on that. And that's going to start it up. In many ways, this is a quirky tool. I'm just telling you right now that in many ways, this is quirky. All right. If you do the download and if it works and if you bring it up, I know that's a lot of ifs, but if you do all that stuff, it should look like this. Yours, as far as your username, will be different. Your server name should be this. Okay. You may or may not remember when we talked last week, I mentioned that there was an SQL server authentication. And if we put that in, then we'll have to put in a username and a password here. I don't want you to have to do that. So we're just going to keep it to Windows authentication. The server type should be database engine. You shouldn't touch any of those. But what's kind of important here is two things. First of all, this server name, you might want to go grab that, copy it to the clipboard, and just throw it someplace where you can refer to it later. All right, so I'm going to put it right there. Okay, and I'll make this nice and big. So there's that. Okay, so in other words, that right there is my server name. This, again, this would be different if I was hooked up to an external server someplace. All right. The other thing, and you can get this in different ways, but I just want to make sure, whoops, let me do that again there. I want to make sure you have this, is I'm also going to copy in this username here. Oops. Well, that was smart, wasn't it? All righty. Sorry about that. So let me bring that up again. All right. So you should really, again, you can get these in a bunch of different ways. I just want you to know that. But I want to be able to grab this. And of course, it's got me hung here. That is not good. All right. All right. All right. I'm just going to have to remember it, I guess. So let me bring it up one last time here. You're going to need to provide this information to the system is what I'm trying to tell you. Not doing a great job of it, but I'm trying to tell it to you anyway. All right. So when you bring this up, this again will be your username. It might be something like this. It might be different. This is set up when you go and load the stuff online. So I didn't set this thing up to have it say what it says right here. All right. I wonder, will it let me do this? Yeah, it's totally fine. All right. So I'm going to type in here, and I think it's case sensitive. Desktop hyphen M1J or BEF backslash JP Scott. So that is my username. And again, there are other ways you can get this. So don't worry if you say, well, geez, I didn't, mine didn't work or whatever. It actually is okay. All right. Now I'm going to click where it says connect. What that should open up on the side here. And again, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, but there's 2 or 3 different things that can open up when you do this. All right. What opened up for me is the Object Explorer. There's an Object Explorer. When I go over to View here, there's an Object Explorer. There is an Object Explorer Details. There's the Solution Explorer, of course, is over here. But what should open up is what opened up here. All right, this Object Explorer. That's what should open up on yours. Now, when you look here, I guess I could have done it from here. So look, it has both that connection. That's the first thing I showed you. And it has my username. So they're both in here. So I guess I could have grabbed them from here as well. Now, when I go to databases here, yours may look similar to mine. Yours may look almost empty. And either way, it's okay. All right. Either way, it's okay. All right. So let's assume for a second that you've done all this. You know, you've installed SQL Server Management Studio. You've done everything I told you to do. You brought this up. Everything is cool so far, but you don't have anything at all in here. So you can right mouse click where it says databases and you can choose new database, just like that. And then when you do this, and I know this sounds like a pain in the behind, but it basically comes in here and it says, okay, what do you want to do? All right. Well, the other thing that I sent you this morning, and you probably already had it, but I sent you the database that they set up, that the Muroc book set up in like chapter 19. And I've already got it on there. As you can see, it says MMA books DB. I'm going to attempt to redo it, but I'm going to call this one MMA books DB2. So you will do very similar operation, a very similar bunch of operations to what I'm going to do in here. So I'm going to type in MMA books DB, but I'm going to put a 2 on it. Now, if I didn't, it would give me an error because it would say I already have one by that name. In fact, I don't like putting DB2 on there. I'm going to call mine MMA books 2 DB. Historically, when people create databases, they end them with DB, short for database. You don't have to do that, but it's just kind of a standard that most people seem to follow. Now, in here, it created some stuff for me. All right. It says logical name, and you'll notice it's the same name as right here. So that's going to be the name of my database. When it creates the name of the database, it also creates what's called a log file. And what the log file is supposed to contain, what it is supposed to contain, all right, is basically a log of all the transactions of everything you tried to do with the database. All right. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. The rest of the stuff here, I don't know what all this stuff is. This file group, you can look it up, but I'm not sure what it is. The initial size will be 8 meg for each one of those. It'll allow it, once it reaches 8 meg, it'll automatically bump it up 8 times 8 or make it 64 meg. All right. And this will be the path to it. Okay. Now, if this works, and we're going to see right now if it works, if this works, I hopefully will be able to click the refresh button here. And then not only will I have an MMA Books DB, but I'll have an MMA Books 2 DB. So I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to click OK. All right, it says file name was empty. Provide a file name. Well, I thought I did. All right. Oh, let's see, database files. All right, this might be the name of my table. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to type books in here. All right. And let me try it again. Add. And in fact, I may not even need this. Let me get rid of this. I'm going to click on this right there, and I'm going to click OK. Nope, it didn't like that. So I will put books in here. And I'm going to click OK. Come on, provide a name for the file. I already did that. I guess it wants it in here. All right. So let me get rid of all this. And I'm going to go over to here where it says file name. And I'm going to put in here MMA books 2 DB. Hopefully it'll take that. We'll see. Add. And it looks like it did. And OK. Would you give me a break? I don't want any of these in here, and it made all these for me. Oh, goodness. Base, that is correct. Owner, that is correct. Name. I'm going to try to move this over and put it here because that's where it should have been. So that's on the same line here. All right. And I want to see if I can remove these, but I don't remember how to. Show details. File. It is. It's 5:02. Let's take a 10-minute break and I'm going to see if I can figure this out and we'll just pick it up when we come back. All right. So let's come back at 5 after, please. All right, it is 9:05, so I'm going to start up again. Um, Again, one of the things I'm trying to do here is to show you what I at least consider to be the easiest way for you to do this as possible, because I don't want it to be error prone. So I backed out of what I've done, and I'm going to try doing it another way. I've never tried it like this, and I'm not sure if it'll work or not. But if it does, it's a lot easier than when I tried showing you before. All right. So what I sent you out this morning was I sent everybody out that email. And one of the things that was in that email, try this again, as soon as I find it, was this thing that was called database.zip. All right. So I'm going to go and I'm going to grab that file, that folder, and I'm going to unzip it. So it right now is in my downloads folder. I'm going to do an extract all, and database is fine. I'm just going to call it that. All right, there it is. All right, and it says database, and inside it's got these three files. Okay, it's got the actual database itself. I just want to show you these. These basically you need special tools to open them. I'm not going to open up either one. This one is a .sql file that's very similar to the .sql file that we looked at when we were working with MySQL. That allows you to build the database. This is the already completed database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this completed database right here. All right. And I'm going to drag it over to my desktop, and I'm just going to tell it to copy it over there. All right. Like I said, I'm hoping that this works because it'll be a lot easier way of doing it. I was thinking about this during the break here. And so I've already got a database over here on mine that's called MMA Books. All right. And I want to change this to MMA 2 Books. So I'm going to literally just rename this database. So it's right now it's MMA Books, and I'm going to click in there and I'm going to change it to MMA 2 Books. That shouldn't hurt anything to do this, but I'm working with a copy just in case what I try to do, I screw it up. You don't have to do this because you don't have that database in there anyway, but I'm going to try to do it like this. And that is, I'm going to attempt to attach to an existing database so we don't have to go to all the trouble of recreating everything. So I'm going to right mouse click on here and choose attach. And it says, well, where is your MDF file? That's that file that I just showed you. All right, so I'm going to click add. And over here, I'm going to find my desktop, which has got to be here someplace. Or let's just see if I can type in desktop right here. All right. And now let's see, there it is, MMA2 books.mdf. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click OK, and it filled up a bunch of stuff for me. And I'm going to click OK again. Oh, doggone it. Like I said, I thought that was going to make it much easier. So let's see. It says original file name, etc. All right. Database file status error. It may be because I did rename it. Now, I'm going to go back. That's fine. I'm going to go back and rename it, and it may tell me over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one that I've already got, and I'm going to rename this one. All right, so I'm going to rename that one to 2. If I'm screwing stuff up here, you'll be the first to see it. All right, but I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to give this back its regular name, MMA books.mdf. All right. MDF is Microsoft database file. So I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to right mouse click on here. I'm going to choose attach and add. And I'm going to find there's the file. I'm going to click OK. Now I may get another error. I don't know. Well, I don't know why I did that, but it did. All right. All right. Now, I don't know if I have to click add first. Nope. So I'm going to just try doing it with OK. Son of a biscuit. Giving me the same error regardless of how I'm trying to connect here. All right, so I will have to try to track this down because there's got to be a much easier way to connect. We could come in here and we can do a new database and try to build it from scratch, but I'm not sure if we're going to have problems if we do that. All right, you already saw when we did this, the problems that I had. All right, so I came in here and I said what for the database name, MMA, let's just call it something else. I'll call it books. All right. And when I click OK, it told me that it needed a file name, I think. Oh, it ticked. Oh, there it is. Oh, well, that was how we did it then. That was pretty easy. All right. So I now have a database called books. Now, I'm going to take for granted that you think, well, that worked. You did that too fast. I don't even know what the heck you did. So I'm going to remove it and recreate it. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to go back and recreate it. All right. So we come up here to databases, right mouse click, choose new database, give it a name. So all I typed in here was books. It filled in everything for me. And then I clicked OK. And there's a new books database. All right. That's a good start. In fact, that's a terrific start. Now I'm going to right mouse click on here because I don't know what options it's going to give me. All right. So it has in here, one of the things that we can do is we can do a script. We can do a new query. We can do a whole bunch of stuff in here. Well, I'm going to try to do this. Again, I don't know if it'll work or not. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click new query. But before I do, all right, this is again what I sent you this morning. I'm going to grab this thing that's called create_database.sql. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to open it. All right. So I'm going to edit it with Notepad. Okay. And there it is. It's MMA books. It's got everything in it. I'm going to copy all of it. Control A, Control C. So I've copied every bit of it to the clipboard. Now, I'm going to even do this. I'm going to go back and pretend I'm you. So I'm going to remove this one. Okay, I've got this here. I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to right mouse click on here and I'm going to choose new database. And for a name, I'm going to call it MMA books. And I'm going to hope it doesn't give me any errors. It didn't. There is MMA books right there. I'm going to right mouse click on that and I'm going to choose new query. All right. And it brings up in here what's called a query window. Now I'm going to paste in everything that was in that file. That was all the stuff that was in there to create the database itself. That was everything. All right. And then to run this, there is a little green button over here that says execute. You're going to know right away if this works or doesn't work. So I'm going to click execute. All right, cannot drop database MMA books because it is currently in use. Select a different database name. Lovely. All right. And you won't have to do any of that stuff. All right. So let's see if it lets me create two. MMA books 2. And then I'll have to use it to make it active. Okay. And I'm not going to use either of these. All right. MMA books 2. What doesn't it like here? Oh, it's MMM. I'm sorry. It's MMA2 books DB. All right. Those errors are gone. Okay. Now we've got this. There's already an object named customers in the database. Well, what did it do in here? Did it make this? All right. Well, look at that. It made my database anyway. All right, there's my customers. Let's see if there's anything in there. I don't know if there is or not. All right. There's my customers. All right. So let's do this whole thing all over again. I'm gonna run through the steps you will have to run through. You go out and you download SQL Server Management Studio. All right. Once you come in and you download SQL Server Management Studio, you will start it up. And if you don't know how to start it up, you'll click down here and you will go and you will find under Microsoft. All right, you should have a thing that says Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18. Your number could be different. It's possible. And then you want to find the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Again, when you click on there and bring it up, it's going to show you this. It's going to do that, and you will click connect. I'm already connected, so I'm not going to choose that. But you will then click connect. You may want to write down your username and your server name. All right, so I'm just going to click cancel because I'm already or was already there. Then you will come into here and you will right mouse click where it says databases and you will choose new database. Then in here, you can type in that MMA books. All right. And then click OK. I'm not going to do that because I already have it. And that should create the new database in here. Then you will go out and you will find the MMA books.sql file, which is right here. All right. Now, if at the top of that file, if it says to create the database, all right, you can remove that line that says, create database MMA books, and then just copy everything in. Then you should have all of the information that I have in here. All right, so everything I have, then you should have. If you try that and it doesn't work, let me know. All right, we'll try to, if I have to, I'll do this again tomorrow. All right, so with all that stuff mentioned, done, talked about, etc. All right. I'm going to I don't need anything in here anymore. It will ask me when I close this if I want to save it. All right, or normally at least it does. And I don't want to. All right, so when I close this stuff, it says you want to save it. No, I only want to create that database once. All right. Okay, so everything should be cool, as far as I know at least, over here. Now I'm going to actually close this. So I'm going to do a file, exit. All right, and I'm going to go back into my program that I have been working on, which is right here. All right, now I will tell you, it's kind of funky when you work with databases in here, being able to bounce back and forth between your program and the database, etc. What I should be able to do is in here, I should be able to go and click view, and under view, I should be able to go to, oh, where are you? Server, SQL Server Object Explorer, I believe it is. All right, I should be able to go there. And underneath there, all right, if I go in here and I look, there's my local DB, etc. The one that's here under databases, there it is. All right, so you should be able to find it that way is what I'm telling you. All right, but I'm going to go on and we're going to see if we can get this thing to work. Because like I said, there's not really that much code that we have to put in here. All right, so we came in and I explained to you what the connection variable was, what the command variable was, what the adapter variable was, and what the table variable was. All right. Clearing our stuff, the only thing that was new was basically having to set this up, and I even gave you a URL for this. All right. Our exit is nothing new in there. Okay. So now, hopefully, we'll be able to come in and set all of this stuff up. So the first thing I want to do is I want to actually set up that connection string. Okay. All right. So I'm going to come in here and say var, not con, but con string. All right. And that is equal to, and now we put in our database connection string. Okay. This is pretty long. And it actually, the system, it's going to be in double quotes. So the system is expecting it'll be on one line. So mine's going to go right off the screen. All right. But I'll explain it as I'm putting it in. I'm going to start this with an @ sign. You've done this a couple times before, but you say in here, data. So, oops, I gotta spell it right. Data source is equal to, and that's that same thing that I showed you before. That is in parentheses, local DB, followed by a backslash, followed by MSSQL local DB. That is the same thing that you saw when we brought up SQL Server Management Studio. So again, if I were to bring that back up, the dialog box that came up, it had server name, and that's exactly what this is. That's the thing I told you before you might want to copy, and if you notice, I did. So local, whoops, try that again up here. So local DB, MSSQL local DB. So you can see that's the same thing. All right. Now we're not done. That's the beginning of it. All right. Then the next thing you do is you type in, and again, this is the way they set it up. A semicolon here, then you say initial catalog equals, and then you put in the name of the database. So again, yours will be MMA books DB. All right. So MMA books DB, we're still not done, but we're almost done. All right. And again, there are different ways of doing this. All right. I'm going to recommend then that you put in lastly, integrated security equals SSPI. And that is built in Microsoft security, all right, to try to make sure that nothing bad happens to the database. So, and a semicolon on the end. Now, I've got the green line because I'm not using it yet, but let me make this smaller so we can see all of it. I know that that's small, I get it, but I want you to see everything that's in here. So maybe I can make it a little bigger. There. So var con string, this will be our connection string. All right. If you say, why do we do that? There's 2 or 3 more lines we've got to put in here. And as soon as we put those in, my hope is at least the stuff that we're doing is going to start to make a little bit of sense to you. I mean, databases are their own animals into and of themselves. All right. But we put an @ sign in here because we've got these backslashes. All right. So we say first data source equal, and this is our server name. We're running it from our own machine. So it is local DB, and I believe this is case sensitive. All right, backslash MSSQL local DB. So this right here, this is setting up our server name. Okay. Next, you say initial catalog equals, and that's where you, whoops, and that's where you specify the database name. Finally, you say integrated security equals, and that's where you bring in the built-in Microsoft security. Again, I will take this, as soon as we get done today, I am going to take this entire project and I'm going to put it out into a GitHub repo. You won't be able to run it until you have a database with the right name that you are connected to. All right. And it's expecting you're going to use that name. So if you use another name, you'd have to change that as well. All right. So the next thing then that we want to do is we want to create, an SQL connection based on the con string above. And it's much easier than that even sounds. All you say is con, that's the one we did up on top, equal new new SQL connection, and we pass it con string. And then we open the connection by saying con dot open. And all that means is it's ready for us to go in and start to talk to the database using our program. All right. It still won't work, but the good news is there's not a lot we have to put in here yet. All right. I don't know how many lines there are, but we'll see in just a second. Okay. So what's left in here, I'm going to do a file, save all, is we've got to go in and do something here. We're not doing anything right now when you click the execute button. And as you could probably guess, that's where all the magic will happen. All right. And I just put in here attempt to execute query. It's a routine that I'm going to write. That's why I'm getting the error message. So I'm going to say here private void attempt to execute query. All right. Now, still isn't going to work because we have to write the code that's actually going to do all this stuff. And we're going to do that right now. Okay. All right. The first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that query command that we're about to use, that query command, all right, is got nothing in it. So we're going to blank it out in essence. So I'll put a comment here that says blank out. In fact, I'll do this. Our database field. All right, and that'll say query command equal null. All right. Then next, we want to create a new query adapter object. All right. How do we do that? We say query adapter. That's that variable that we created earlier. Okay. So we want to say query adapter is equal to a new SQL data adapter. All right. So we're putting the pieces together basically. Now we want to create a new data table object. Do it much the same way. Table equals new data table. All right. And again, I'm not saying to you, this is good. Does this 100% make sense? Because it might make very little sense. All right. But now we can go in and start doing some stuff. Well, the first thing that we want to do, I'm not going to put any of that stuff in there, is if there's nothing in here, we've got no query to run. It should make sense. If we left what's in here blank and we click execute, there's no query to run. All right. So if there is no query to run, we want to be able, we want to be able to handle that. So let me go back to here. Go. All right. So I'm going to say in here, check for no input in query text box. Okay. So if txt query dot text dot trim, if it's equal to nothing, well, again, we know there's nothing in there. All right. We could write our own routine, but I just did a message box right here. Message box dot show. And I typed in nothing entered into query text box. That'll be our error message that comes up. And I'll say query text box empty. Okay, and that's going to be our title. And finally, then we will just say message box buttons. .ok. And our icon will be error because there's an error. Now, we can go in and check this one. But if that's the case, well, there's two things we want to do. First of all, we want to set the focus back. So I'm going to say txt query dot focus. And the other thing is I don't want to go any further. So I'm going to return. So again, we've come in here and we blanked out our query command. We've set up a new query adapter. We've set up a new data table object. And now we're checking to make sure that isn't empty. Well, I can do a file save all, and I can check that pretty easily. I'm going to put nothing in here. Oh, it doesn't like something. It says keyword not supported data source. Oh my goodness. All right, well, we'll have to check that. Let's see, keyword not supported. It's because it's two words, not one word. There we go. My mistake. All right, so making sure you have data sources two words. So let's try it again. It's not showing anything. That isn't really good. Let me get rid of this. All right, and I want to get rid of, so I've got a couple of instances of this running right now. And of course I closed the wrong one. All right. All right, let me bring it back up again. Here's our tester. All right. All right, I just brought this up and I just put the code in here that said, if it's empty, do this. And that's all we've got in here. So let's see. It's not giving me, right now, it's not giving me any output. All right, exception handle. Cannot open database, MMA books. The login failed. Okay. Again, you shouldn't have this problem, but I did. Let me make sure I still have MMA books in here. All right. So let me go to view. And I'll go to my SQL Server Object Explorer. All right. I'm going to go up here and to databases. And, oh, there's MMA books. Oh, this is supposed to have been MMA books DB, I guess. Rename, see if we can put a DB on the end of this. Like that. Okay, let's see if it takes that. Stop the run and start the run again. There it is. Now there's nothing in here. I click execute, query text box empty, nothing entered in here, and I put my cursor right there. So that's all working. That's a start. All right. So what's next then? Okay. Like I said, not a boatload, but one thing that you'll learn very quickly is when you work with databases, not only can stuff go wrong, stuff will go wrong. Sooner or later, you'll type in a command incorrectly, you'll put in a wrong table name like I just did, or it'll be something along those lines. All right. So you end up putting everything in a try catch block. So we know if we get down here, there was content in the text box. All right. But what we have to do is we have to validate that the query is valid. Okay, we have to validate. In other words, we have to make sure that we put something valid in here. If I just put hello and click execute, it's not going to work. All right, because that's not a valid SQL query. So let's go in and put in that. All right. So again, inside of a try catch block, and I'm just going to throw the catch in here right away. All right. And this will be exception. There's a lot of different kinds of exceptions. I'm just going to grab the generic one that's right here for exception. Whoops, I screwed that up. Let's fix that. And again, what do we want to do here if it didn't work? It's up to us. I'm going to basically do the same kind of thing we did up here. Did we do it? We did it up here. All right, where it says nothing entered, but I'm going to grab this because we want to do almost the same thing. All right, so I'm going to come back into here. And instead of nothing entered, I'm going to put invalid query entered into text box. Now, just because I like to be thorough here, I'm going to say plus, and in here, I'm going to put in \n, and I'm going to say another plus, and I'm going to say ex.message. That way, I get the system message. Not only will it say invalid query, but then it'll also tell me what the actual system message on that was. All right. And after we're doing, I'm not going to say query. I'm just going to say query text invalid. And again, I'll just make it a OK button and an error. All right. Now there is junk in there, so I want to clear that out. So txt query dot text equal double quote, set the focus and return. All right. I should be able to do that now. All right. Now, all that's left is, well, what if it did work? So what if I put something valid in there? All right. Well, I can come down here and I can put in invalid query text. All right. But up here, what do I want to do? Okay. Well, like I said, it's about 7 or 8 lines, but I'm going to comment everything so you can see everything that's happening. First thing I want to do is to create a new SQL command object. I don't want to create one of these until everything else has been set up and until I know that I've got something valid that I want to put in here. So I'm going to say query command equals new SQL command. Now I'm going to tell you this, and this should make sense to you. All right, this right here, and I'm not done yet, but this is going to be whatever we put in here. All right. So in other words, where are we grabbing this from? This is being grabbed from txt query dot text, and we want to use our connection. All right. So that's first thing that we want to do. Now, you may or may not remember that what we said was what we wanted to do here. What we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to use this query adapter as a bridge between the program and the database itself. So I'm going to put in here just that. Use query adapter as the bridge between the program and the database. All right, how do I do that? I say query adapter dot select command. Now, notice when I say this, I put in dot. There's a bunch of stuff here. Why am I telling you that? Because there's an insert, there's an update, there is a delete, and there is a select, which is the one we're going to choose. The reason I'm telling you that is those are those CRUD operations that we talked about last week. I'm saying all I want to be able to do in here is select, and I'm going to set that equal to query command, which we just did up above. Okay, well, 3 more lines and we're finished. All right, next, I want to come in and I want to fill the data table. So the data table with the query adapter output. All right, so query adapter dot fill table. All right, 2 more lines, I think, and we're finished. Next, we want to set the data source for the grid view. In other words, we have to let it's for the data grid view. We have to let the data grid view know where are we getting this information from. So DGV query tester dot data source equal table. That same table that we just did in a line or so up above. I think there's only 1 more line. Finally, we want to set the number of records returned in the associated label. So that is LBL num records dot text equal. Now I'm going to put this in and it's going to give me an error, but we'll fix it right away. I'm going to put in here table dot rows dot count, but it won't like that because that's a number and we're attempting to put it into a label. So we have to go back to our old friend dot to string. That should, if I didn't screw up typing anything, that should work now. So let's try it first. Right, and see if it works. And then we'll go back and take a quick look at it. We'll be done by 10 o'clock. Object reference was not set to an instance of an object. Oh, come on now. Query command, yeah. Try. Query command equals new SQL command, txt query.text and con, query adapter dot select command equals query command. Why doesn't it like that? Fill. Oh, that's it. That's weird because it works. Let's see. It's a good news, bad news. The good news is I think that's the only thing wrong. The bad news is that shouldn't be wrong. Invalid query entered into text box. All right, well, maybe that was it. It might actually be okay. So let's try this. Select star from books. Oh, come on. Well, let's see if the errors work. So I'm going to spell select wrong. No, it's not connecting. Now, what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to put a working copy of this out there. But what I want to do is I want to grab the original one that I used for this, and I want to be able to look at this line and see what, because I don't think there's anything different. But let me grab the one that worked. All right. Which I called in my mess here. This is the one we're working on. Here it is, SQL query tester. All right. So let me bring this up. Just to show you, prove to you that it does work. I just ran it right before class. Of course, it worked fine. Found that open. The server was not found or was not accessible. I think it's because the other one is still up and running. So let me try that again. I know what the problem is. This is not the right one. I'm running the wrong one. So it is there. There it is. I can tell it's different. The other one was purple. This one's yellow. But if I do come in there and run this now and I put in select star from books, this is all case insensitive when you write the query, and I execute invalid object near books. Well, I gotta remember what the name of the tables were. Is there a customer? Select star from customers. There's the customers. Notice there's 696 rows. They're all actually in here. If I kept going and going, it'll keep reloading and reloading as it needs to. All right. So we had those. We had, I believe, orders. Or maybe we didn't. But we could go through there now and find everything that we had. And notice if I click clear, that clears. There's my cursor. That went back to 0. All right. So we can go back in here, though. Let's see. And let's see. Click on this. There's the tables. So I've got customers, products, states, so I can try any of those. So let's try invoices and products and states. All right, so select star from invoices. And it shows 40 invoices. Select star from states. And we've got 53 because remember, there's also the District of Columbia, there's Puerto Rico, and there's the Virgin Islands. And then finally, let's just try the products. And there's 16 products. The clear works if I put in something incorrect. So if I spell as the select incorrectly, I say select star from products. It gives me that error. This is my error, what I wrote, the invalid query in text box. This is what the system wrote. It says incorrect syntax near the asterisk. So it's trying to let me know, all right, what the problem is. And if I put a wrong table name in, you've already seen this, but if I select star from hello and execute it, I again, invalid object, name hello. It's doing the best it can to let me know, all right, everything. Now, only one last thing that I want to say here, and that is this. When I created this one that works in here right now, okay, if I go back in and I view the code, it's the same code I just gave you, all right? And that was the line that didn't work, that query adapter equals query command. I don't know why. I'll try to take a look at it. But I want to tell you something because I don't want you to be confused. All right. But in my own stupid way, what I did when I wrote this is I called it MySQL tester. Well, we're not using MySQL. We're using SQL Server. So I should have called it SQL Server tester. I didn't. But it works just fine. You'll notice if you look in here that it doesn't have a solution file. Since it doesn't, just double click on the one that says CSPROJ if you want to take a look at it, and it'll bring it up and it'll work just fine. So again, this is called, close this, MySQL tester, and I may even have it out there. I may have done this a year ago and put this out there. I don't remember. So I'm going to go out to github.com. All right. And I'm going to create a new repository. Says it's available. Think that's exactly what I've called it. I want to call it the same name, MySQL tester. So yeah, it looks like it's available. All right, I'm making it public, clicking create repository. I'm going to grab my remote add origin line, copy that in, come into here. This MySQL tester, right mouse click, git bash here. You've seen this before. All right, so git init, git add dot, git commit. If I want to see what's in here, I can type in git status. There's a bunch of junk, as you can see. There's all the project files. So git commit -m MySQL query tester, and I think that's what we called it. MySQL tester. MySQL tester. Program should have been called SQL Server tester. All right. I'm going to paste in that git remote line. All right. And a git push -u origin master. It'll spin. Should come back now. There you go. If I come back to here and I refresh, there it is. All right. So even though we had some problems, don't let that throw you. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to build the interface, the GUI for the program. All right. We're also going to attempt that we won't hook up to the database yet. We're going to do that after Thanksgiving. But what we're going to attempt to do is to grab the data that we're going to use and hook onto it using stuff that we've already done. In other words, we're going to create a list that's going to have all of our stuff in it. We're going to see if we can fill the data grid view from a list rather than a database. All right. And my hope is by a week from today, on the 28th, when we reconvene after the Thanksgiving break, that everyone will have SQL Server Management Studio loaded onto their machine, and we can go in and we can build this Garth Brooks database as a class. I'm purposely not going to build it beforehand. It's a simple database, but I want us to do it and build it together. All right, that's what we will do a week from Monday. All right. Grant, I hope you're still there. And if you are, do you have any questions?
Yes, I am. I think I get it for the most part. I mean, I'm gonna go back and watch, after the break when I can. I got all that stuff downloaded, so I'm hoping that all
Okay.
works out. And I guess I'll just email you if I have anything.
And that's fine. And that goes for the rest of you as well who are watching this on tape. If you have any issues, just let me know. And I will be more than happy to try to work with you on this. I wish I had thought of doing it, because the first way I showed you with the new database, et cetera, was kind of a pain. All right. But we will do this, like I said, even if for some reason yours didn't work, you don't have to turn this in. You don't even have to key this in if you don't want to. The project that we will start on tomorrow, this Garth Brooks project, everybody has to turn in. It'll be worth, I don't know, at least 200 points, maybe 300, because this is the last thing that we're doing in the class, except for your portfolio that you're doing at the end. All right. So with that, I will see you tomorrow morning.
See you tomorrow. Bye.